next 5 minutes is the what's new, what's coming part of the Simulcast forum. Last week, Harris Broadcast, also known as Interplex to some of us, became known as XVIII. There was no ownership or any other change. Back about 15 months ago, the Harris Corporation sold the broadcast division to an organization called the Gores Group. The Gores Group had about 3 years to continue to use the Harris Broadcast name. They recently changed and put Harris Broadcast and split it into XVIII, which is the Interplex line that some of you are familiar with, the multiplexers, and the other name was
Imagine Communications.
Imagine Communications, which is more the studio and software side of things. So from now on, XVIII is what you'll know for the Interplex product line that many of you use the IP and T1 multiplexers for. New in 2014, Spectracom SecureSync now has a new, faster user interface, and the GPS receiver inside can now also receive the GLONASS satellites. So in case you're in a site that has a challenged view of the sky, the GLONASS capability is a way to have access to more satellites than just in the GPS chain. Convex has a new 12-channel manual delay panel. That's useful in large systems that are going over T1 type links where the delay isn't changing much, but where you may have been using manual delay before. Here's a more efficient way to do that that's packaged in a 1U high shelf with redundant power supplies for under $7,000 for all 12 channels. Yeah. The audio booster limiter, which is used to restore some of the volume for the low talkers in a narrowband radio system, now has an optional noise floor. So for those people that have really low talkers, if it's really tough to educate the people to talk more loudly, it gives you better dynamic range in that device. However, it amplifies noise. So there is no free lunch, so to speak. You get to choose by turning the gate on and off as to whether you want to have more low range and a little more noise, or whether you want to keep it so that the noise doesn't get amplified. So that's a new feature in the booster limiter. And the other new change is that XVIII put a modification in their DACS, Digital Access Cross-Connect server, on highly redundant systems for better fault notification and action on that. And because it's involved, I'd like to have Steve Paulson come up and give a quickie description of how the signals go back and forth.
Circuit alarms. It's an issue that unless you are extremely concerned about redundancy issues in your system, you probably will never see. But in this particular case, the customer had three different sites, well, 4 different sites actually, because you got head-end multiplexers, an intermediate site with digital cross-connect servers, and then transmit site multiplexers, all of this traveling across multiple networks. It's a little hard to see with the color here, but each one of these multiplexers has redundant T1 paths. The 2 T1 paths coming from each one of them are connected to a different DACS. All this to make sure that multiple failures don't take down the system. Issue, when one of the terminal multiplexers sees an alarm come in to the multiplexer, it turns around and sends AIS or the alarm signal back. So that in a typical situation, if this T1 failed, with the normal path being down to this multiplexer, if this DAC sends on the alarm from this T1 failure, then this will turn around and send its alarm signal back, and you'll never get out of that loop. We've figured out a way to terminate the loop problem, and therefore we've given this piece of equipment in the middle the ability that, for example, if this T1 fails, we'll send AIS out this path and this path to tell these shelves to look at their backup paths. And we figured out a way to, on restoration of the failed circuit, to turn off AIS regardless of what the multiplexes at the other end are sending back. So we've removed the terminal loop complication, which is why most factors don't do this. Again, you've got to have a customer that's, I hesitate to use the word crazy about redundancy, to get quite to this configuration, but we do have a few, and therefore we decided that it was worth the engineering time.
Thank you. A much better description I could have given to it. Thank you, Steve. Okay, products that were new last year. There's a reverted selector module that mounts on a secure sync. So if you want to have two secure syncs and have a failover, there's actually a module on secure sync that can do that, so that one of the devices is always active, and that's about an $800 module. There are about 35 of those presently fielded throughout the states. Convex has an automatic switch assembly, which ends up getting put at the remote site to switch between the primary and backup simulcast source of audio. It's just a relatively simple A-B switch, so you can have redundant paths going to your site or redundant infrastructures. And as Steve talked about earlier, there's a 5 megapulse per second, 1 pulse per second composite signal that you can get in one of the Spectrum secure sync modules now that allows you to feed the MLC 8000 with the right signal. So it's 5 megapulse per second, and at the top of the second, there's a double wide pulse. That's how the MLC and the GTR know what the timing is for the signal. At this point in time, I just have a quick reminder for those that haven't heard it before. Motorola's product offering, the Motorola standard offering simulcasts Quantar. There are many of you who have simulcast the MTR 2000. Motorola's new Quantar replacement is the GTR 8000, which, while it can't play on a Quantar channel, it can play in parallel on a different channel. There's an MTR 3000 transmitter in the Motorola market. It has transmission-to-transmission variation of 200 microseconds, so the MTR 3000 is not suitable for simulcast. Just can't quite do it. There have been 3 or 4 different Motorola dealers who have tried that and were unsuccessful. So until Motorola says they're interested in doing that, which they have said is not on our roadmap, until Motorola changes their mind, please stay with MTR 3000 because I don't know a way to solve that yet. Another product that I'll just give a comment on, there are many of the Kenwoods that have been successfully simulcast. There's an NXR 710, so it's what might be referred to as a 10 series. That does not suitably simulcast either. So TKR 740, TKR 840 are simulcast capable. The NXR 700 series, just not the 710 series. So just some tips in case you're considering using those particular products.